3.
So we're back with another evening presentation here. Thank you for all those who keep watching, and we're doing our best to update you on what's happening and to give you some information about our region. While we're all home and we're all learning how to do this better and better. It is weird running for office and being stuck at home mostly. And I want to give opportunities for other people that I believe in a chance to share who they are and express their. Quite a few people watch this, and more people are watching this. So tonight I have on ChaRon. ChaRon. That's how you say it, right?
That is true.
ChaRon, correct?
Excellent.
Thank you.
Excellent.
I don't want to screw it up. I've known you for a few years now, right?
Yes, we met, back in 2018. I met you on a porch in Scottsville, New York.
I did, and we thought for sure that had no idea you'd be running for office, and here you are running for office.
Yeah, I wasn't thinking about that at the time either. So
we were in a porch with a bunch of kids, and I told you I was running for Congress. And what did you know about me at that time? Not much, I bet.
Not too much, and I think I remember Sarah Dunreese gave me a call, and she put the word out to several of our leaders and said, Nate McMurray, he's an exciting candidate. He is asked to meet with us and learn more about our campaign. And so we were very excited. We'd heard things, a lot of excitement around your campaign. People really invested in the vision you were bringing. So we were delighted to have an opportunity to get to know you. And I think what was most interesting is you didn't talk that much. We watched the kids race around. So I think that's what really impressed me. We just really talked a lot about the issues that were around gun violence prevention and helping to dispel some of the mythology, I think, around this work. And, you were sharing your own experiences as a gun owner as well, and discovering that actually there is a lot of common ground. Gun owners actually are just as passionate about gun safety as moms are.
Well, I'm a gun owner, but I am not I'm a regular human being. I want that gun to be safe and kept away from my children, and gun safety is my priority. And I always try to frame the discussion regarding firearms to talk about gun safety, because I think it's something that no matter what your position is, we all believe, anybody, whether you're an absolutist or you're someone who believes in strict gun regulations, we all believe in gun safety. So that's usually what I come at it from. But we'll talk about the other stuff later, but let's talk about you. Where are you from?
Well, I grew up in a small town in northern Illinois. Like a lot of communities, we were a sleeper town. We had a lot of folks who might take the train into the big city, but we also had a lot of farms around our community. Every morning, I knew what time it was based on the hog report. So it was a small town, and it's a town that I go back to visit. I still have family back there, and I see the challenges, for these communities to figure out what their identity is. But one of the things that I think about, I've been here in the Northwestern New York region for over 25 years now. And
Wow.
What I love.
So this is home now.
Yeah, it's, there's just so much history, and it's an incredibly beautiful region. And unlike now when I go home, I drive back to town and it's, it looks like you're driving into Syracuse or Des Moines, it's just, there's all this development. So everything's changed, but it looks exactly the same. And
so
that's one of the...
You live in Pittsford now, correct?
Yeah. Yes, I do.
Pittsford, which is a beautiful town.
Yes.
And so you 25 years and your background is in education, correct?
Yes.
And what seat are you running for, so people know, and what area does that cover?
So I am running for state assembly, and the district is the 133rd, and the region covers southern Monroe County, which includes Pittsford, Wheatland, Rush, and Mendon, all of Livingston County, and the northern part of Steuben County, which includes Hornell, Cohocton, Dansville, Prattsburg, Wayland. So it's a pretty big region.
It's a big place, and a lot of these towns I know very well because I've run an NY27 now for over 3 years. I marched with you in Rush, which was fun.
Yes,
Were you
and I
part of
think,
that? I think you were part of that parade, correct?
yeah, and I can name my candidacy on that parade as well. That was where I met Barbara Bear, and we were so
Hmm.
excited to hear that she was running for the assembly. And
Right.
she scolded us that she was running because none of us young women would run. And it was so brusque, but it was just kind of, that's
Listen, I
Barbara.
went to a debate with Barbara Bear at the Geneseo College. She was a fantastic. Barbara, if you're watching, you stole the night that night, and I thought you were a great candidate. I know how difficult it is to run, and for those who don't know, just let me say for a second, Barbara Bear, she had this incredible history of leadership in New York City. I think. Wait, does she know Bloomberg? I think she did.
Yes, she's worked with Bloomberg, and she also, so she worked several years with him down in the city as well. So she's very familiar with his leadership and the impact that he had as he was a mayor.
But she was involved in some type of various different social programs in New York City before she moved up here. But I think she's a very intelligent woman. But I love that you're running in this seat now. And so have you been around the district a little bit and you know it well?
Getting to know it, I just was, petitioning was a great opportunity. We got down to Springwater and spent a day there, and it was just an incredibly beautiful community, great people. It was, just learning about local government, really just everything from the sewers to
Mm.
the volunteer fire department, and just thinking about all of the ways legislation at the state level really impacts our communities, and how important it is that we're considering those impacts on our more rural communities. So I think that's a really important voice that needs to be brought. But communities like Dansville, um, going over to Geneseo and seeing the impact of students over there, um, seeing Hornell and all of the works that they're doing, and some of the great things that are happening with high-speed rail. So some really exciting things that are happening around the region.
You may have the most historical region in the entire country. Honestly, if you think about the history in that region, if you think about Dansville and who was there? Claire Barton was there, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And you have like just it's just saturated with history, that whole region. And by the way, for those who haven't been to Dansville, it is a pretty neat town. And at the edge of the town, I always talk about it because it's hard to miss. There's this old resort, that's the best way to call it, that was
Up on the
there.
hill.
Yep, and it's quite a sight if you haven't seen it before. Yeah, if you spent some time in Dansville and you saw the Star Theater and the main street there.
And it's great. I think, meeting, we stopped over at the Battle Street Brewery, and it's such a tribute to the history of the region. You'll see all the photographs. One of the young women, she was a student over at the GCC campus there. She pointed out her grandfather, who
Wow.
was picketing, so that history of, workers and advocating for, their
Labor
rights.
rights, right?
Yeah, and I think that's what I love about the history and the
It
connections and the devotion.
it is inspiring, and I try to tell people that we need to reclaim that history. We have this everything from the Niagara movement, which led to the NAACP, to Frederick Douglass, to Susan B. Anthony. I mean, the history of this region is incredible. To the burnt over history I always talk about, to Nikola Tesla coming up to Niagara Falls.
Yeah.
It's everywhere you go in NY27 and also in your district. It's just chock full of history and progressive history, and I tell
Yes.
people that to remind them. So look at you. So you came here. You wanted to run. It's a huge step to run for office, though. I mean, is there many moments where you say, "Why did I do this?" I mean, I have those moments myself all the time.
Pretty much all the time. Yeah, and I think sort of my background in education is helping. It's a lot to learn, and but I love learning. And I think, as I've been thinking about why to run, leadership matters. I think we're seeing so much of that, especially the last few weeks. It's really important who we have in office, and making sure that we have effective leadership in place. I think, I've seen it in my workplace. I think we're seeing it on the national stage, and we certainly have seen it here in the state of New York.
Hmm.
So,
Can I ask you a question about your personal background a little bit? I won't go too deep into it, but I think I have, you know, I often I've talked to you about this briefly, but you're of Asian American ancestry,
yep.
and my sons share the same ancestry as you. Would you be willing to talk a little bit? I'm sorry if I'm prying too much, but
No,
would you
I'd
be
love
willing to talk?
to.
Can you talk about what it was like to grow up as an Asian American kid in Illinois?
Yeah, absolutely. So my father was in the U.S. Army for over 20 years, and he was educated and older, and he was able to woo my mother. And that's a big choice to leave your country, but I think they were, this was the late 50s, and my mom
Wow.
had grown up in the Japanese occupation. She actually grew up speaking Japanese, so she's been through a lot, and her story is amazing on its own.
Can I pause you right there?
Yeah.
So many people. This is obviously a subject I care about a lot, and I spent decades overseas, and most of it in Korea. So many people don't realize that Korea was occupied by the Japanese, and many people, including your mother and my mother-in-law, grew up speaking Japanese and had
Yes.
Japanese names, and
Yes.
the Korean language was was banned in most respects, and even the Korean flag was banned. I didn't know that, by the way. So she grew up under the occupation, and there was the war, which Korea was basically like it was completely destroyed. It was a refugee country, and then she met your dad. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so she was in her 20s at that point. And, you know, so, there's so many things we could spend a few hours just talking about my mom,
I'm
but
sorry.
I'm
Yeah, it's
trying to,
interesting to me.
but it's fascinating. You think about that. I mean, what would that be like for you to not be able to speak the language that you grew up with?
I have tons of respect for your mom, especially in
Mm-hmm.
that era. Having married someone from Korea in the modern era that had actually studied in America and was familiar with the culture, it was already a huge cultural change and a huge cultural barrier to get over in many ways for both of us, and also from her family's perspective about
Absolutely.
marrying an American. For your mother to do it in the 50s, she is a woman of courage. I'll tell you that
Yeah,
right now, and I'm sure you could write a book about it. But what
absolutely.
about you personally? What was it
So
like? Go ahead.
interesting story. So this is kind of a funny, the town is called Woodstock. So I was born in Woodstock in 69. So if you don't
Wow.
contextualize that, it might sound a little funny, but so I came along late in my parents' relationship. My mom was about 40 when I came on the scene. And when I started going to school, it was in 1974, and this was just after the Vietnam War.
Wow.
And so it's interesting, looking back. And I think for all of us, we always have that feeling of being an outsider for whatever reason. Maybe it's, our family's circumstance, or
Right.
I think that's just so much of what we all feel growing up. And, when you hear from your peers, to go back on the boat you came on,
Mm.
I think we're seeing some of that today.
With
You know,
what the president's doing. Yeah.
so
Are you as angry by this as I am? And
it,
and I mean, he knows exactly what he's doing, no matter what he says. He's trying to hurt people.
it's calculated, it's orchestrated, it's absolutely intentional, everything that's being done. And it reminds me of grade school, honestly, but it's
Mm.
being done for a very specific purpose. And that's what is just so disappointing. So it's like, yes, it's infuriating, but I'm also the kind of person who figures out, I can be angry about it, or I can get back to work.
So let me shift gears. And by the way, I'm proud of you and what you represent and who you are. And um, thank you for sharing all that. But what do you want to do for this district? Like, what are your priorities?
So much of my experience has been working in education and community development. If you think about what we do with our students, we really do something really traumatic to them when we send them to college. We rip them away from their families and their supports and get them to work learning difficult things. So much of what we do is really helping to develop communities and setting them up to be successful and helping them to get to the work of learning. So, I want to be the representative that is well known by the constituents, that I'm in town, that I'm very visible. Um, so again, I think the campaign doesn't stop on election day. All of
Mm.
the work that needs to be done continues. And so much of that is dependent on the leadership of who's in office to work with the different needs in the community, to bring voice to those things, to make sure that, with everything that's happening, that those issues are amplified and get the action that they deserve from our state.
So what I think you're saying is you want to represent the people, which means being available to them rather than forcing your agenda upon them.
Absolutely. It's about serving the people, people first, and making sure that everything that else that's in our government is here for the purpose of serving the people.
Well, I always say, listen, we need to be blunt. We both love Western New York, upstate New York, but it's not great for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
And our industry is not only in decline, it's now, I mean, decimated in a large degree. I always say that this NY27 has the worst job market in the country, and in the country, uh, which is hard to believe, but that's according to the Wall Street Journal.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and when we look at this, we pretty much have one party rule in many of these counties. I mean, the people representing us in Albany are by and large from the same political party. They're Republicans. And obviously, we have a lot in common with Republicans. We have Republicans and Democrats in our family. But you think that in some of these districts, they would try something different. And I don't want to get too much in this unless you want to. But your assembly seat, there's a history of corruption in that seat, just like there's a history of corruption in NY27. Is that wrong to talk about, or do you not want to talk about that? But I think it's relevant.
And I think that's what I learned from being a volunteer with moms is, part of our work is working with our local legislators and just the incredible disappointment that we've had trying to work with them and just
Right.
seeing, this long history of, not necessarily putting the people first, but taking care of their self-interest.
Can I say something about you? And it's not my place to give you advice, but I want to share something with you that I think will benefit you well in politics and everything else. When I first met you on the back porch with those families, and they were families, these were not politicians, these were families that were having a picnic and invited me to a picnic to talk about ideas and about the things they care about. Is you came across as full of zest for life and full of energy and passion. I think if more people see that, and I know who you are because I saw it before you cared about politics, before you cared about being a politician, rather, but you cared about these causes, I think people will be drawn to you. So I was drawn to you.
Mm-hmm.
I said, this woman is passionate. Um, is that? But when you become a candidate, I think a lot of people, and I want to get your opinion on it because you've been pretty good. I've seen you. Um, is it hard to really come out of your shell? Don't you feel a little bit like you've gone into what you kind of have to go into a shell to be a politician? And is it hard to show who you are to the world once you become a politician? It was hard for me in the beginning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so. I think there's sort of that, filtering that happens, and you get a lot of feedback from a lot of people. And I think just trying to figure out how to communicate who you are so you can get in there and do the work. I mean, I've always been that person who, again, I just figure out how to do the work.
Right.
I make the connections. I work with people. I've made connections with people who are cast as my enemies. And that's really what it's about. But I think there's just so much you have to prove, and there's so much judgment, going
Yeah, it's
forward.
hard. Hey, when I first started, go back and look at pictures of me when I first ran for local office, or even when I first ran for Congress. People would be like, "Who is that guy?" Because I thought
Mm-hmm.
I had to do or look a certain way to be accepted. But I can
Mm-hmm.
tell you, the more and more I've been into this, the more and more I speak from my heart and I'm sincere and I don't put on a facade, the stronger I get.
Yeah.
I always tell candidates that if people who care to hear my opinion, but I think you're pretty good at that. When I see you at events, you're full of life and you're still full of excitement. Are you sad that you didn't get to show that personality more because of this virus thing? Are you worried about that? Like we were going to have a parade together in Geneseo for St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah.
Those kind of events, I think you would shine at. Is it as difficult for you as it is for me?
I think we have to re-gauge, we have to reinvent. But the other piece is even with this high tech world, we're inherently low tech people. People want to connect. People are scared right
Yeah,
now. There's a lot of grief right now. And I think
yeah,
when we pick up the phone, people are so wanting to talk right now. So I
yeah. I
think
know.
we can connect in more authentic ways. It's going to have to be different.
Is that what you're doing right now, making calls?
Yeah, that's really our strategy is to, be calling directly into our communities and building those networks. Again, it's a very grassroots strategy.
What do you hear on the phone?
I think people need to work through their fear. They're anxious, and I think there's just so much change that's happened in just a few weeks. They're trying to sort through what is good information and what's not. They have children who go to work and they come back and they don't know if they can hug them.
I know.
They're not.
Yeah, I know. I hear exactly the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm scared, but I'm trying to be hopeful. I talked to some physicians today, and they told me the likely scenario, what they thought the likely scenario was, and the worst case scenario. And I know we'll get through it. It's just about getting through it with the least amount of damage possible.
Right.
And I'm hoping we can do that and pull together as a community. Mm-hmm. Listen, I think you're fantastic. Is there anything else you want to share? I mean, this is an open forum for you to tell people how can they help you? How can they learn more about your campaign?
Well, we have a website set up. It's called votecharon.org or votecharon.com. Sorry. That probably is one of the first tips, is to get your website down correct. I also have a Facebook page as well, so you can head over there and engage with us as well. So we are looking for volunteers.
What's the Facebook page? Should I just type in ChaRon for assembly? Is that what come up?
Yep. Actually, if you do the facebook.com/votecharon.
VoteCharon, got it.
Yeah. So we try to make it simple.
Are you doing any online events or anything like that where people can get involved?
We're working on setting up several events right now. Again, I think, to be honest, the last 2 weeks, I've just been buried at campus. I work at a university, and we've been essentially having to rebuild everything and turn it around.
Because you're having to create an online curriculum. Is that what it is?
Yes. Take a whole city and turn it all around and do everything differently in a matter of weeks. That's what we did.
That's incredible.
It's amazing. And it's happening all over the nation. So.
Do you think this is going to change the way we work, the way we go to school, the way we communicate? It has to, right?
I think we're going to take out a lot of things that will help us, but I think it will also reinforce the things that are important to us, like our communities. Technology is certainly a great tool for us, but inherently the way we get things done is in communities. It's how we teach each other. It's how we learn things. It's how we move the agenda forward.
Do you think that going forward we're going to have more? I think one of the things I see missing right now is the fact we don't have any broadband.
Right.
And without broadband, I'm having difficulty reaching voters through town halls that we're having simply because the internet doesn't connect, or they don't have connection. There's people in NY27 and in your district that still have dial-up speeds. Don't you think that's a huge issue?
And I think this is what's highlighted. 1 out of 4 households in Livingston County does not have access to high-speed internet.
Right.
And that's impacting our kids who are trying to learn. They're not able to learn online. They aren't able to access things. So it's kind of creating a bigger gap. For our businesses, you want to have our small businesses. They need point of sale ability. Because less is being done with cash, they need to be able to kind of register their transactions online. So it's critical.
Listen, I think it's far more. I don't know if that number is even right. It's got to be more than 1 out of 4, because I talk to so many people, and just for those who don't know, it's not that they can't only not buy it. Even if they had all the money in the world, it's just not available.
Right.
You can't get it. Mm-hmm. So, well, listen, ChaRon, I love talking to you. I hope you win. And I hope you keep your voice bold. You're a nice person, and a lot of the people with us are nice people. And politics is not nice; it's mean. And I hope you can always stay who you are, because I think that's what people need right now: are people that are good and decent and kind. No matter how long you're in politics, whether it's 1 year or 50. I hope you stay who you are, because America needs people like you.
Well, Nate, I really appreciate the opportunity to chat with you and get to know you a little bit better. And we're so excited for what you're going to bring to New York State. Again, having your voice at the national level is so important to really speak to the strengths of our region and to bring the resources back for us so that we can reach our potential.
So everybody vote ChaRon, ChaRon.
That's how it's pronounced.
That's how it's pronounced. It's not ChaRon, it's ChaRon. So vote, VOTE, ChaRon, CHRON.com, correct?
Yes.
So go to that website, help her out, Believe in her, push her. I know this woman. I've met her on dozens of occasions. She is consistent. She is kind. She is decent. These are the type of people we want in leadership. If you want a country that cares about education, that cares about families, vote for people like her. If you want a country that's focused on the wealthy and the most elite and the most powerful and the most corrupt, don't vote for her. She's someone you know will have your back in Washington, or excuse me, in Albany, maybe in Washington next. Believe in her. She's someone we need to have in politics. And I'm proud you took that step. And I know it's scary. I know every single day, just to let you know, there's not a week that goes by where I don't say to my family, why did I ever start this? But it is so rewarding at the same time because I meet people like you. We're sharing the messages that we believe in. We're planting seeds for the future. And it's the greatest thing I ever did. And I hope you feel the same.
It's a great journey. It's terrifying, but the people we're meeting and our communities are worth it, and we deserve great representation.
And you will be great.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll see you soon. You want to stick around and Torin, are you there?
I'm here.
You want to? We're gonna. Is she gonna stick around? Oh, she's off. Okay, she's gone. Is she off the screen now?
We should be live now.
Hey.
Nate.
Hello, Nate.
Nate.
I got one side of us going. We lost Nate.
You there?
I'm here.
Yeah,
You guys, are we good now?
Hey, Nate.
we are good.
We're live with these guys. Oh boy.
Oh,
Sorry
my
about the audio there for a second. Jim, are you here?
I'm here.
ChaRon, are you here?
I am here.
So, guys, I really liked the vibe we had last night where we had a conversation at the end. So, Jim, I wanted you to be part of the conversation. ChaRon, I wanted you to be part of the conversation. We're going to switch out players as we go along for as long as we do these. But let's go to questions. Are there questions out there? I got a question. I'll kick it off. Someone asked me today, why aren't you running commercials? Well, sadly, we're not running commercials because we don't have the funds to run endless commercials like our opponent. The funds, I am not independently wealthy. One day worth of commercials in NY27 costs $10,000 at least. So we are saving our money. My staff is doing everything they can to support. Your fundraising is helping us, but we're getting there, and we are building towards a point where we can actually put commercials on the air. Why do we need to do commercials? Because everybody's home. And if we're not on television, we're not going to win. And sadly, that's the case. Why don't we have enough money to do commercials? Why isn't Washington, D.C. or Joe Biden or somebody paying for commercials? Because the Democratic Party, we're funded by and large by regular people, not corporations or dark money super PACs. We certainly don't take money from corporations. And there's a lot of races in this country. The money for our race comes from our supporters, people like you. And there isn't any secret bag of money in Washington that's going to bail us out. We have to win based on self-reliance. So everyone who's already given to the campaign, thank you. We're saving as much as we can so we can put it into these commercials. But we're as eager as you still on the air. And if you remember the commercials we did in 2018, they weren't ugly. They weren't attack ads. I think the ads my opponent is running right now are vile. I can't believe he's running them in the midst of this crisis. They're offensive in every single way. Not just because they attack me and lie, but because they're hurtful and xenophobic in the era where we need to be coming together. I've called for him to take the ads down. He won't, sadly, because he knows that attack ads work. Hate works. And we need to rise above that and come together. I strongly believe you have to have a strong message. If you don't believe in your message, nobody will. But I'll never use hate to win an election. So again, we're working to get our commercials on the air. We understand your concern. We are 5 times more concerned. I spent the entire day, as I do every day, trying to raise money from good people like yourselves. Every dollar helps. And I know even in this time of crisis, talking about money is not what I want to do. But leadership matters. Politics matters. We must win. If Donald Trump wins in the middle of this crisis, he'll have another feather in his cap. We don't want to give that man any credit or a feather in his cap in the midst of his failure. And if we win, it will send a message until November. So work with us, help support the campaign. We're doing it the right way, the way people say they want it to be done, and we're going to go forward that way. So any other questions for anybody? ChaRon, any questions online right now?
Yeah. First question is regarding Delaware North. What's your reaction to the news of them cutting most of their workforce?
I think it's awful. It's a tragedy. It should never have happened. I mean, let's be honest. These are people with billions and billions of dollars. They could have given their people hundreds of thousands of dollars in severance and still never felt it. And if they can, they're mismanaging something. And I'll be honest about it, because I think it's an outrage. I'm not only the one outraged. People across the country are outraged. People in Boston are outraged. A lot of people are outraged. I think it's something that's wrong. I think that those employees, many of them are my friends, are stakeholders. They're stakeholders who invested in the company and invest in what's right for the company. And for them to have treated the people that help build their business like they're disposable is wrong. And you might say, well, they don't have any obligation. Well, neither does Wegmans, or neither does Diane Williamson, the basketball player, who has far less money than the chairman of Delaware North, but he's paying the concessionaires. They're the only NHL franchise not to pay the people they put on leave. So I think it's wrong. I think it's embarrassing to Western New York. And I think that it's hurtful to the people in a time of crisis. I think people show their true colors in a time of crisis. And you may say, well, it's convenient for you to say, Nate. Well, it isn't, because saying it is hurtful to my. I don't want to say those things because it's a place that I helped build. But you have to call out